Welcome back to the program. This is going to be another one where we're going to do 4 separate segments, okay? And this one is going to be the first one. Hillary Clinton should have been prosecuted a very long time ago. Obviously, during the whole Benghazi situation where she abandoned the post, she did not put reinforcements in when they were needed, and then, of course, lied about it and said, what difference does it make? And then Susan Rice, of course, blamed it on a video. She should have been prosecuted back then. You know, there was a reason why people would go to Trump rallies and scream at the top of their lungs, lock her up, because that's exactly where she deserves to be. Fast forward to now her email situation, where she bit her emails and destroyed her servers, which, by the way, were not protected and were in locations that were unsecured, which of course allowed China, Russia, and who knows how many other bad actors have leverage over her and the United States, leaked intelligence and information. She should have been prosecuted back then, but of course you had James Edgar Comey, who was protecting her. Well, her luck may run out because there's been a thumb drive that has been sitting in a desk drawer since 2018 that has now been found and discovered. Now, in my opinion, this is nothing new because I reported back in 2018, 2019 that Barack Obama said to destroy all the information pertaining to the State Department and the emails, and there were at that time thumbnails that were being hidden in Barack Obama's private residence. You may remember the story. You'd have to go way back in your memory bank to get that one out of your head. But now, Chuck Grassley and another gentleman in the House, which we'll go through in a second, have located the thumb drive. And I guess you could call this segment the thumb drive from hell. FBI caught burying smoking gun thumb drive containing unreviewed information on Clinton's email scandal 6 years later. Okay? Grassley has demanded that FBI Director Kash Patel review these materials immediately. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley and House Permanent Select Committee and Intelligence Chairman Rick Crawford have dropped a political bomb on Washington in a smoking gun thumb drive containing unreviewed evidence in the Hillary Clinton email scandal that has been sitting in an FBI office collecting dust for over 6 years. The letter, addressed directly to FBI Director Patel, demands that the unevaluated materials, which include sensitive intelligence, foreign communications, or what's known as forlorn, and damning evidence related to the Clinton Foundation and Barack Obama himself, be immediately reviewed and exposed to the American people. Thumb drives containing unreviewed info on the Clinton email scandal and mishandling of highly classified info have been sitting in an FBI offshoot office since 2018. I sent a letter with House Intel Chair Crawford asking Director Patel to review these materials immediately. Now that was from, of course, Chuck Grassley on X. According to the press release, the untapped and unreviewed information has lived within this thumb drive in the FBI's custody inside a Northern Virginia offshoot office of the FBI's Washington field office since 2018. So here you have more evidence, right? We're finding out even more evidence. I'm going to drop another story that I did years ago as a reminder to you all that Peter Strzok is a major player in Russiagate. Major, okay? And just today, I went on X and I just obliterated him because, of course, he not only got rid of every single thing that he texted on X, but he has a connection somehow in the Wayback Machine, and he wiped all that as well. But sorry, Peter, the internet is forever, you scumbag. And guess what? Bernstein has a lot of it, and we're going to show it. And I'm also going to show and prove that I don't believe he's ever been an FBI agent. As a matter of fact, he's a CIA operative in plant, and I'll go through the reasons why that is. But let's go back to Hillary for a second. She should have been charged with so many crimes. U.S. Code 1001, destroying evidence, She could have been charged with obstruction of justice. She could have been charged with tampering of evidence, obviously, by destroying all of these different emails that she had. And she escaped justice. But you know what? This is a new FBI. This is a new Department of Justice. And let's hope and pray that finally we take down the witch, the Hildebeest herself, because there is so much incriminating evidence against her, against Bill, against the Clinton Foundation, which is nothing more than a money laundering operation when I talked about that and exposed that many, many years ago. And of course, there's so many other things that are peculiar about her, right? Make sure and make it look like an accident, Hillary Clinton, Hildebeest. So Cankles McPantsuit, as I like to call her, she might be going down here pretty soon. So they're going to be dropping more information pertaining to Hillary Clinton. And again, they're going to drop more information on Obama. And they're going to drop more information, I can guarantee it, on Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, Fusion GPS. The list goes on and on and on. Stay tuned. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. Okay. Let's switch gears. Let's go to this. So check this out. I have called what we are living through and experiencing with technology, especially for young children, digital heroin. Because that's what it is. It is a digital form of heroin. There have been studies done that literally say that children have an addiction, and adults, but also mostly children, have an addiction to the digital heroin of cell phones, video games, laptops, computers, you name it, that addiction is stronger than a heroin addict. And that's why I call it digital heroin. Well, we know that the younger these kids get on social media and get cell phones, the worse it is for them. But now there's numerous studies that have now not only validated that observation, but more importantly, show without a doubt that the younger a child is subjected to and given cell phones and this type of digital heroin, the more likely they will, when they're older, commit suicide. Kids who get smartphones before the age of 13 face skyrocketing suicide risks, study warns. The younger a child is when they get a smartphone, the more likely that they will have mental health challenges, depression, and possible suicidal ideation. In a nutshell, studies tracked over 100,000 people from the ages of 18 to 24 to examine the effects of childhood smartphone ownership on adult mental health. And then, of course, they asked them questions. At what age did you get a smartphone? At what age did you get a video game system? So on and so forth. Those who got smartphones before the age of 13 showed a much higher rate of suicidal ideation, depressive thoughts, aggressive behavior, and emotional and mental struggles. Girls were especially affected, with 48% of those who got phones at age 5 to 6 reported suicidal thoughts by the age of 19, compared to 28% of males. Unreal. Researchers urge policy changes recommending age restrictions and mandatory digital literacy training to prevent and protect developing minds from these harms. Nearly half of young women who received their first smartphone at age 5 or 6 now report having suicidal ideation thoughts, compared to just over a quarter of those who waited until they were at least 13 or older to get a device. A sweeping new study tracking more than 100,000 young adults across the globe reveals a troubling pattern that should alarm every single parent. The younger a child is when they are first introduced to a smartphone, the worse that their mental health becomes in early childhood. The research published this month in the Journal of Human Development and Capabilities shows overall mental well-being scores plummet as smartphone ownership age drops. Researchers used a comprehensive mental health measure that tracks emotional, social, and cognitive functioning. Scores fell from 30 points to 13 for 13-year-old first-time owners to just 1 point for 5-year-old recipients. What's more, the magnitude is substantial. If current trends for increasingly younger smartphone ownership and social media access continue, projections from this data suggest that this factor alone could be responsible for mental distress such as suicidal ideation, disassociation from reality, and diminished functioning mental capacities such as emotional control. And then it goes on to say that the next generation and the generation after that must understand that if they continue to go the path of the former generations, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Now, the hard part is, not as parents, but as society, everybody uses a cell phone. That's what it is these days. And I'm sure that it's affecting major relationships and marriages throughout the entire world, right? I would assume people looking into their phones, don't touch my phone, who's this person calling you? Where did this tweet come from? Where did this text come from? All these crazy things. And we're losing the ability to communicate with each other. Because why? Because we're in our phones and we're texting and we're giving short language, TBH, to be honest, LOL, all these other things, right? And so we are lacking in our social inclinations towards one another, number one. Number two, we're more withdrawn from society because we got everything in the palm of our hand. I don't have my phone on me right now. It's in the other room. And so all these things are contributing factors to depression, to loneliness, to incel behavior, to being withdrawn, social, what's the word I'm looking for? Social awkwardness, I guess, right? And so our generation, older Americans, we know how to communicate. We know how to articulate our ideas and our thoughts in a meaningful way. We can do small talk. This generation, they don't like small talk. My kid hates small talk, and I barely even talked to him at the funeral. I mean, just a few words here and there. And he's part of that generation as well. And so this is a dangerous precedent that has been set, and we've got to do something about it. Now, again, all the studies in the world can say what is happening, and it's like a train going down the track, and you see someone on the track, and you can't stop the train, and they won't leave the track, and the next thing you know, boom, tragedy strikes, right? Well, what we have to do as parents and grandparents is, if the parents won't do it, we need to step in and say, no telephones, no cell phones, no nothing until their brains are mature enough to be able to handle it. Now, a lot of people might say, oh, Josh, you're such a square. This is ridiculous. How are you going to stop all these kids? Look, I get it. I understand that argument. Believe me, I do. But if we don't do something and we just watch these kids get more and more and more, depressed and into despair and withdrawn from society, what is that going to do for the rest of us when these folks become future leaders? Do we want these depressed, suicidal, withdrawn types of people to be our next level of rulers? Gosh, no, we don't. So something's got to be done. And the first thing is making people aware of it. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one. Okay, the next one here is Alzheimer's. Let's talk about Alzheimer's. This is personal for me because, of course, my father passed away from Alzheimer's. Imagine that. He gets a rare cancer, and he gets an operation that has less than a 40% chance of being successful. And he's in the 40% that's successful. And what happens? He loses his mind. And it's sad. It's horrible. I lost my dad in 2019. And so this is personal from that standpoint. We clearly have watched a dementia patient for the last 4+ years in the Otto Penn administration. And quite frankly, it's sad because he should never have been in that position. And Jill should be prosecuted for elderly abuse. It's the worst amount of elderly abuse ever seen in public in world history, okay? The last 4 years as far as I'm concerned. Well, are there ways to fight against it? Now, apparently there's medicine, there's drugs, there's things like that. But what about diet? What about exercise? What about things like that? Well, there's a new study out, and it says fighting early stage Alzheimer's will require intensive lifestyle changes. As her memory faded from Alzheimer's disease in her late 50s, Tammy Maida began to lose track of her life, car keys, eyeglasses, and her pursuit of her own mental state. It disappeared multiple times, and it would come back multiple times. This would occur day in and day out. Key characteristics in a lot of what she has been experiencing were things that she thought that she could remember that she immediately would forget. Groceries, for instance, were left in the garage. Keeping the books for the family's business became literally impossible. I honestly thought I was losing my mind, and the fear of losing my mind was frightening, Maida told CNN chief medical correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta in the 2024 CNN documentary, The Last Alzheimer's Patient. However, after 20 weeks in a randomized clinical trial designed to drastically change her diet, force her to exercise, and reduce stress levels and social interactions, Maida's cognition improved. She was able to read and recall novels and correctly balance spreadsheets once again. A blood test even found levels of amyloid, amyloid, not sure what that is, a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease, were retreating in her brain, according to the study published in June of 2024. Quote, "I'm coming back. It was really, really good. Like I was the prior person that I used to be before being diagnosed with this disease." She is now 68 years old, and she told researchers on the study that I am older, but I am better and a better version of myself. Maida's cognition showed additional improvement. However, after she completed a total of 40 weeks of an intensive lifestyle change, investigator Dr. Dean Ornish, a clinical professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco, and creator of the OMISH Diet and Lifestyle Medicine Program, studied Maida and many others and gave an update in 2025 to the Alzheimer's Association International Conference in Toronto. While not everyone in this 26-person interventional group benefited, 46% of them showed drastic improvement in 3 or 4 standardized tests, according to this doctor, including one that measured changes in memory, judgment, and problem-solving ability, as well as the functions at home, practicing different hobbies, and practicing personal hygiene. An additional 37.5% of people showed no decline in cognition during those 40 weeks. Thus, over 83% of patients improved either dramatically or slightly, or at least maintained their cognition during this 5-month program. The new findings mirrored those of other studies on lifestyle interventions, he said, including the recent U.S. Pointer study, the largest clinical trial in the United States to test moderate lifestyle interventions over 2 years in people who are at risk but do not yet show any signs of Alzheimer's disease. Our study complements these findings by showing for the first time that more intensive lifestyle changes may often stop or even begin to reverse the decline in cognition in many of those who already have Alzheimer's disease, and these improvements often continue over a longer period of time. And unlike available medications for Alzheimer's, he added, lifestyle changes had major effects when it came to diet and exercise, and even lowered the risk factors for such things as bleeding and swelling in the brain. And then it says Emblem Health, a New York-based insurance company, announced Tuesday that it will be the first health insurer to cover the Omish lifestyle medicine program for patients who have early stage Alzheimer's disease. So that's wonderful news, because it's not all about big pharma. It's not all about taking some type of a drug. Because remember what I've said for many, many years. There's no money in cures. There's only money in treatments. And because of that, this is how big pharma and all these, companies and organizations get filthy, stupid rich, because they need you to continue to depend on the medication that they are feeding you, that they are giving you, which of course makes you, at least we hope, better or live longer. But what about all the other determining factors that the doctors are not telling you? And why? Because they don't make any money. They don't get any kickbacks from big pharma. If you don't think doctors get kickbacks from big pharma, then you don't understand how medicine works. Of course they do. And then you've got people that are hired as salespeople for the pharmaceutical industries to go to the doctors and say, hey, try XYZ drug. Give this to your patients. And then they get a kickback. And so all of that is part of this. That's why they don't like naturopathic medicine. That's why they don't like people that talk about healthier ways without using drugs and pharmaceuticals to fix what ails us. That's why years ago there was more than likely a serial killer and or contract hitman, which I've talked about at length many years ago, that was working for the pharmaceutical companies and was doing what? Was getting rid of naturopathic doctors, nurse practitioners, anyone that would not deal with big pharma. They ended up shot to death. They ended up stabbed in the chest and found in a ravine somewhere. They ended up in a car crash, in the middle of the night. I mean, who knows how many people were disappeared and taken out, if you will, because they were affecting this. So that's why studies like this need to get out there. Because look, this can affect all of us. It can affect our families, our loved ones. It certainly affected mine. And, our body is our temple. And you got to put good food in it. You got to get exercise. You got to do all those things. Okay, I don't want to go on a soapbox on that. But it's good to know that there are ways to mitigate certain ailments and things like that. And again, your brain needs to be used, right? That's why this social media thing, like I talked about in the other segment, is so bad. Because you're not thinking, you're just reading something, or you're texting, or you're not using full sentences. That's why a lot of people end up having problems. Your brain is a muscle. It needs to be actively used. You've got to do lots of different things. Read books, crossword puzzles, challenge your mind constantly. And if you do that, you'll be healthier for it. And of course, eat right and exercise. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. See you in the next one.